Before any person can build lasting success, there is a silent enemy that must be confronted. This enemy does not announce itself loudly. It does not physically block your path. It operates quietly inside the mind, and unless it is recognized, it will control decisions without your awareness. That enemy is fear. Fear is not a physical condition, it is a mental state. It grows from uncertainty. It strengthens through indecision, and it becomes permanent when fed by doubt. Most people never examine their fears. They simply react to them. They delay action and call it caution. They avoid risk and call it responsibility. They shrink ambition and call it realism. But in many cases, what they are truly responding to is fear. The most dangerous aspect of fear is that it feels rational. It presents arguments. It produces logical excuses. It convinces you that waiting is wise and that bold action is reckless. Over time, this repeated pattern conditions the subconscious mind to prefer safety over opportunity. And once the mind becomes conditioned for safety alone, extraordinary achievement becomes unlikely. Fear always begins subtly. It begins with hesitation. A small doubt appears. That doubt creates emotional discomfort. Instead of confronting it, most people distract themselves. They postpone decisions. They gather unnecessary opinions. They search for perfect certainty. But certainty rarely appears before action. As hesitation continues, doubt deepens, and doubt is the soil in which fear grows. Indecision, doubt, and fear are closely connected. Indecision leads to doubt. Doubt strengthens fear, and fear reinforces further indecision. This cycle repeats quietly until it becomes a habit. Once it becomes habitual, it shapes personality. A person may begin to see themselves as cautious, shy, unlucky, or incapable. In reality, they are simply conditioned by unexamined fear. Fear also weakens imagination. When fear dominates the mind, creativity narrows. Instead of imagining possibility, the mind imagines failure. Instead of seeing opportunity, it sees risk. This shift in mental imagery affects emotion, and emotion affects behavior. When emotion is negative, action becomes limited. Another powerful effect of fear is its influence on belief. Belief is essential for achievement, but fear competes directly with belief. When fear grows stronger than belief, persistence weakens. A person may start a goal with enthusiasm, but as soon as obstacles appear, fear interprets them as warnings. Instead of adjusting strategy, the person questions the goal itself. The majority of individuals attempt to apply success principles while ignoring their fears. They attempt to set goals without addressing doubt. They attempt to build confidence without eliminating negative internal dialogue. But fear, when left untreated, sabotages effort from within. To defeat fear, it must first be identified clearly. Vague anxiety cannot be defeated. It must be maimed. It must be understood. And it must be analyzed calmly. Once fear is exposed to reason and purpose, its intensity begins to weaken. There are 6 basic fears that influence human behavior more than any others. These fears are universal. They appear in different forms, but their roots are similar. Each one affects ambition. Each one affects confidence. Each one interferes with decision making. And unless they are mastered, they quietly limit achievement. In the next part, we will deeply analyze the first and most powerful of these fears, the fear of poverty, and uncover how it silently shapes financial destiny. The fear of poverty is considered the most destructive of all fears because it directly attacks ambition. It interferes with initiative. It weakens imagination. And most importantly, it conditions a person to think defensively rather than creatively. When the dominant thought in the mind is centered on avoiding loss instead of creating gain, progress slows down dramatically. The fear of poverty rarely appears in extreme form. It usually disguises itself in ordinary thinking. It appears when a person hesitates to invest in their own growth. It appears when someone refuses to pursue a business idea because income feels uncertain. It appears when comfort is chosen over opportunity. In each case, the surface explanation may sound practical, but beneath the surface, fear is operating. One of the symptoms of this fear is chronic indecision. A person may continuously delay financial decisions. They may overanalyze simple opportunities. They may seek endless reassurance before taking action. This pattern creates stagnation. While others move forward and adjust through experience, the fearful mind remains stuck in preparation mode. Another symptom is doubt. Doubt weakens self-trust. When a person constantly questions their own ability to produce income, their actions become cautious and limited. Instead of asking, "How can I make this work?" the question becomes, "What if this fails?" That mental shift reduces energy, it reduces creativity, and it reduces persistence. Procrastination is another strong indicator of fear of poverty. Important tasks related to growth are delayed. Financial planning is postponed. Business ideas are discussed but never executed. Over time, delay becomes habit, and habit shapes results. This fear also influences lifestyle choices. A person may remain in an environment that offers security but no advancement. They may tolerate dissatisfaction because uncertainty feels more frightening than discomfort. But growth requires movement. When fear of losing stability dominates, risk-taking disappears. And without calculated risk, extraordinary reward is unlikely. The fear of poverty is deeply connected to self-image. When someone secretly believes they are not capable of producing wealth, they unconsciously act in ways that confirm that belief. They lower their goals. They accept smaller outcomes. They avoid bold commitments. The subconscious mind works in alignment with dominant belief. If scarcity is dominant, results reflect scarcity. Another subtle effect of this fear is worry. Constant financial worry drains mental energy. Instead of focusing on strategy, energy is consumed by anxiety. The mind cannot operate at its highest level when it is overwhelmed by worry. Clarity requires calm focus. Fear creates mental noise. Overcoming the fear of poverty begins with clarity of purpose. When a definite financial objective is established clearly and emotionally, the mind begins to organize itself around that objective. Decision reduces uncertainty. Commitment reduces hesitation. The moment a person decides that growth is non-negotiable, the internal shift begins. Faith also plays a crucial role. Faith does not eliminate obstacles, but it strengthens persistence. When belief in one's ability becomes stronger than fear of loss, bold action becomes possible. Fear weakens when confronted with repeated acts of courage. But even when poverty fear is reduced, another fear often takes its place. The fear of criticism can silently replace financial anxiety and continue to restrict growth. Many individuals who overcome money fear remain trapped by the opinions of others. In the next extended section, we will go deeper into how the fear of criticism limits leadership, suppresses individuality, and quietly shapes life decisions. The fear of criticism is more subtle than the fear of poverty, yet in many cases, it is even more controlling. While poverty threatens security, criticism threatens identity. Human beings naturally seek acceptance. From early childhood, approval becomes associated with safety. When approval is withdrawn, discomfort appears. Over time, many people become conditioned to avoid any action that may attract negative judgment. This fear influences behavior long before a person is aware of it. A powerful idea may form in the mind, but before it is expressed, an internal voice begins questioning it. What will people think? What if they laugh? What if they disagree? What if I fail publicly? These questions weaken momentum before action begins. One symptom of this fear is self consciousness. A person becomes overly aware of how they appear to others. Instead of focusing on performance, they focus on perception. Instead of strengthening skill, they attempt to manage image. This division of attention reduces effectiveness. True confidence requires internal approval, not constant external validation. Another symptom is lack of initiative. Many individuals wait for encouragement before taking action. They hesitate to launch projects unless they are certain of support. But innovation rarely receives universal approval in the beginning. Progress often requires standing alone before results justify the decision. The fear of criticism also produces conformity. People follow common paths because those paths feel socially accepted. They choose careers based on expectation rather than purpose. They suppress unique viewpoints to avoid disagreement. But lasting achievement often comes from independent thinking. When conformity replaces originality, potential remains underdeveloped. This fear is closely tied to indecision. When a person constantly considers how others may respond, decisions become delayed. That delay weakens conviction, and weakened conviction reduces persistence. Without persistence, even strong goals fade. Another effect is defensive behavior. Instead of learning from feedback calmly, a fearful mind reacts emotionally. It interprets constructive advice as personal attack. This reaction limits growth. Growth requires adaptability. Adaptability requires emotional stability. Fear interferes with both. To overcome criticism fear, a person must shift the source of approval. The standard must become internal. When actions are aligned with definite purpose, external opinions lose authority. Criticism may still occur, but it no longer controls direction. Confidence strengthens when decisions are based on principle rather than popularity. Understanding that criticism is unavoidable also reduces its power. Every visible achievement invites evaluation, but evaluation does not define identity. Once this truth is accepted deeply, hesitation decreases. Action becomes more natural. Even after confronting poverty and criticism, other fears remain active in the subconscious. These fears may not dominate daily thinking, but they influence emotion quietly. The fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death continue to shape behavior in subtle ways. In the next extended section, we will analyze these remaining fears in deeper detail and understand how each one influences long-term success. Beyond poverty and criticism, the remaining fears operate more quietly, but their influence can still shape destiny in powerful ways. The fear of ill health is often strengthened by suggestion. When the mind becomes overly focused on physical symptoms, weakness begins in thought, before it appears in reality. Constant worry about illness drains vitality. Instead of directing attention toward growth and productivity, attention becomes fixed on protection and anxiety. The body responds to dominant mental states. When fear dominates thought, energy decreases. And when energy decreases, ambition weakens. Many people unknowingly magnify minor discomfort into major concern through a repeated mental focus. This habit creates tension. Tension reduces clarity, and clarity is essential for intelligent decision making. The mind and body are closely connected. A disciplined mental attitude supports strength, while fear based thinking erodes it slowly over time. The fear of loss of love affects emotional stability. When a person constantly fears rejection or abandonment, insecurity develops. Insecurity creates jealousy. It creates possessiveness. It creates distraction. Instead of concentrating fully on purpose, mental energy becomes divided. Emotional disturbance weakens confidence. And without confidence, leadership becomes difficult. This fear also influences self worth. A person who depends entirely on external affection for validation becomes vulnerable to emotional fluctuation. Their sense of identity becomes unstable. When identity is unstable, decision making becomes inconsistent. Success requires emotional balance. Emotional balance requires internal security rather than constant reassurance. The fear of old age is another subtle influence. Some individuals associate aging with decline, limitation, or lost opportunity. When this belief takes root, urgency turns into anxiety. Instead of using experience as strength, they interpret time as an enemy. But experience is valuable capital. Wisdom accumulates with years. When age is viewed positively, confidence increases. When it is viewed negatively, hesitation appears. A person who believes opportunity disappears with time may rush decisions out of fear or avoid starting altogether. Both reactions limit achievement. True progress requires steady persistence, not panic or withdrawal. The mind must be trained to see opportunity as continuous rather than temporary. Finally, the fear of death represents the unknown. It can quietly influence boldness. When individuals dwell excessively on uncertainty about life's end, they may limit risk taking. They may avoid pursuing meaningful goals because fear overshadows possibility. But fear of the unknown weakens when life is lived with purpose. Purpose reduces anxiety. Direction strengthens peace of mind. All six fears share common roots. They grow from indecision. They are strengthened by doubt. And they survive in minds that lack clear purpose. When purpose is definite, fear loses clarity. When belief is repeated consistently, fear loses intensity. When action is taken repeatedly, fear loses authority. The battle against fear is not won in a single moment. It is won through disciplined thinking. It is won by examining thoughts daily. It is won by replacing negative suggestion with constructive belief. When a person consciously directs their dominant thoughts toward purpose, persistence, and faith, the subconscious mind gradually aligns with success instead of limitation. Fear does not disappear completely, but it can be controlled, it can be managed, and it can be reduced to a level where it no longer dictates behavior. The individual who masters fear gains freedom. The one who allows fear to dominate remains confined. When poverty fear no longer blocks ambition, when criticism no longer silences expression, when illness fear no longer drains energy, when emotional insecurity no longer divides focus, when age is seen as strength rather than decline, and when the unknown no longer restricts courage, the path becomes clear. At that point, desire can operate fully. Decision becomes firm. Persistence becomes natural. Faith becomes powerful. And when these forces combine without fear interrupting them, progress accelerates. This is how the six ghosts are outwitted, not by ignoring them, but by understanding them, disciplining thought, and choosing purpose over hesitation every single day.